Ladies and creationists, Andy here, day 192 of the Inner Winner Show. For those of you listening to the audio, everything's going to sound exactly the way it usually does. But for those of you who are watching on the YouTube video, hello. I'm trying a different format this time. I've got the camera like facing in a different direction from me, kind of towards me at an angle. I want to try that. I hope it looks okay. I don't like having to look at the camera the entire time. I find it hard to concentrate, especially the way that I do these podcasts. The way I do them is I have my cute little laptop here right in front of me. I got my big sexy microphone over here, and I kind of like read off. I have some dot points and notes most of the time when I have my laptop in front of me. It's just really awkward trying to like look at the camera and then having to look down at the notes. I like just being able to look at the screen the entire time and kind of just ignore the camera. So I think I'm going to go with this kind of setup. As long as this looks decent, doesn't look too weird. I've seen some other podcasters who do the same thing. They kind of like ignore the camera unless they're like directly wanting to make a big point and they look at the camera for a couple of seconds and then they look away. I think I like this setup better. So we'll see how it goes. I won't do this for the normal like YouTube videos where I'm like actually talking at the camera, but for the podcast, I think I want to make the audio quality the highest it can be. I want to make that the priority, and the camera is just kind of like you get to see me as like a nice little bonus for those of you that prefer the YouTube format. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about this concept that I want you guys to create something. You should create something is the title of this podcast. And there are too many people that wait or that think they don't have what it takes to be an artist or be a content creator or be whatever it is. But we're going to talk mostly about art and content creation. So whether that's a blog, whether that's drawing, whether that's starting a YouTube channel or a podcast like I'm doing, whatever it is, too many people think that they either don't have the prerequisite knowledge, they don't know enough, or they're not enough of an expert, or they will, pigeonhole everyone who's got content creation, like me, any other website or podcast that you follow, and they'll say, oh, those people are like experts. Those are like content creators. Those aren't me. I'm not like them. I'm not special. They're further along than me. They're smarter than me. Whatever fucking weird pigeonhole you box them in, you're really boxing yourself in. There's too many people that think, I'm not where I want to be. Therefore, it's completely binary and I can't do any content creation. I can't have a website. I can't have a blog. How do you think I felt when I first set my blog up? I've been doing this now for about 2 years. It might even be a bit longer than that. I think it's roughly 2 years since I started my blog. And I've done 192 of these podcasts at this point in time. But at the very start, I was incredibly nervous. I really didn't feel like I had much to say. My biggest fear was, what if I don't have any article ideas? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not where I want to be. Yes, I've had some success with like getting laid, self-improvement, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be. What if I don't know what to say? What if I have nothing to say? Even worse, what if nobody reads my stuff? What if no one takes me seriously? What if some people read it and say like, you're not an expert. Why are you making a blog? You're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing. Those were my biggest fears. Another fear that I had was I don't really think that I know very much. I don't think that I have any massive insights to give when it comes to getting laid. I don't think I have many insights when it comes to self-improvement. What you will find is, as long as you're not a complete newbie who's literally on day one, you have a lot of insights. You just don't know that you do. You haven't practiced the process of content creation. You haven't found your own voice. You haven't learned how to express yourself. You haven't learned how to take those like ideas out of your brain and put them down on a page or in a podcast or on a YouTube video. Hi, YouTube. You haven't learned to do that shit yet. So it's not that you don't have anything to say. It's not that you're stupid. It's not that you're not an expert. It's just that you haven't practiced getting it out there. And how do you get good at expressing your opinions? By just doing it. Just like everything else. You're going to suck at the start. My first 20 articles are like horrible. They're not great. I didn't know how to write. I didn't have my own voice. My first like 30 or 50 podcasts weren't that great. I didn't know what I was doing. You could make a case that this YouTube video that I'm recording right now sucks, right? I'm not even looking at the fucking camera. I will get significantly better. I'll probably get to a point where I can confidently look at the camera and also orate pretty well. But too many of you guys, too many people sit there and don't do especially those of you who really want to do content creation, you don't give yourself permission to do it. I really, if I can get across one idea to you, is that you are an expert on something just by your lived experience. You will have lived experiences that I don't have. You will be an expert on something. And if you're sitting there going like, man, it would be so cool to have a YouTube channel, or man, it would just be the coolest thing ever if I could have a blog or a podcast like Andy does. I wish I could do that. There is something in your life, every single one of you, that you will be good at. You just haven't actually bothered to sit down and give yourself permission to look for it. You will be an absolute experienced expert on something that I have no idea about. Maybe you're fucking amazing at basketball. Maybe you've done some steroids or something and you're an expert on that because you've spent like 2 years researching it and you know shit that I could never know. Maybe you are, maybe you've been through absolute hell with your weight loss. Maybe you were 150 fucking pounds overweight or something, and over like 2 years you lost all that weight. That makes you an absolute expert. Every single one of you is an expert on something. Even if that's something like, maybe you've put like fucking 500, okay, that's not very much. Maybe you've put 5,000 hours into like Dota or Counter-Strike or some other game that you play, right? Maybe you're an expert on that. There's no reason that you can't do content creation around that. Do you know how many fucking famous people I know, not personally, but how many YouTubers that I follow, podcasters that I follow and stuff, whose entire job is to just talk about esports, like the fucking sports that the fucking video games that they follow. You can absolutely do some level of content creation. You are absolutely an expert at something if you would just take 5 seconds to look in your life and say like, okay, what do I actually have experience with? Again, all of this is like pointed at those of you who want to do content creation, but then say, I'm not an expert, so I can't do it. I'm not an expert myself. I'm not like a getting laid expert. I'm not a fucking like self-improvement expert. I've just done it a lot. I'm not an expert. I fucking hate that word because too many people have the fucking fallacy of saying like, oh, that person's an expert, so that means they're better. No, it just means they have more experience than you. That is all it means. It doesn't mean they're better than you. It doesn't mean they're smarter than you. It doesn't mean they're on this pedestal and you're all the way down here like a pleb. No, it just means they have more experience than you. And there will be 50 million subjects that you have infinitely more experience with than the average person. Those are the things that you should think about starting some content with. And now, I'm not telling you to get into content creation if you don't want to, but this is aimed at, I've had a hell of a lot of people say to me, man, I wish I could do YouTube like you, or I wish not that I'm doing much YouTube, but I wish I could do like content creation, or I wish I could start my YouTube channel, especially because some of the other people in my community, Radical, Joe, there's a bunch of other people that have started a YouTube channel, and there are other people that have messaged me and gone like, I've had a fucking coaching client who said like, man, I wish I could do what Joe was doing. I wish I could start a YouTube channel. And I'm like, then fucking start one, dude. Start one right now. There is always something that you are an expert on just by like having done it. And now, if you can't think of anything, if everything you think about, you say like, man, well, I tried to do this for like, I don't know, pick some random arbitrary thing. I tried to do this for like 2 years and I just failed at it miserably. That makes you an expert, dickhead. That means you're a fucking expert. You have failed it 500 times. You can now tell other people how not to fail it themselves. You are, by virtue of having failed, an expert. You could start a blog on that. You could start content creation on that. You could say, here's the mistakes I made. Here's what you should avoid. Through that process, you can learn to get decent at whatever it is that you failed at 100 times. A lot of my website, especially the early, like the first 100 articles I wrote, were me like figuring stuff out. I didn't have the answers. In writing those articles, I had to come up with the answers. A lot of my website, a lot of my podcast even, is me teaching myself these like fundamental principles of how I want to live my life, ideas like honesty, like virtues like honesty, stuff like that. I'm learning that through the process of writing. I wasn't an expert when I started writing. I don't like the word fucking expert, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was lost in the void, so to speak. This process of content creation was very much me figuring stuff out. So please don't think, I don't want any of you to look at my website or my podcast and say like, wow, like, Andy really knows what he's talking about. It's like only because I sat there and did content creation and I had to figure this shit out. A lot of it is me figuring shit out. I look like an expert when I hit the publish button because you're like, wow, look at this like well thought out article. And it's like, because I spent fucking 10 hours writing that, thinking it through, having to fail 50 times in order to get it done, all that kind of stuff. So please don't think that you have to be some like top level expert or something, or that content creation is for other people, not you. You can completely suck at content creation at the start. That's kind of the process. I sucked. Everyone sucks when they start. Go to any big time YouTuber and go to the very bottom of their videos and watch the oldest video they ever uploaded. It will be absolute dog shit trash every time. 100%. I've never seen an except. The only exceptions are really heavily like edited scripted channels that have like multiple people working on them that are like specifically trying to grow to like millions of followers. And we're not really talking about those because those people already were an expert when they first signed up. You know what I mean? Like they already knew what they were doing. But for every other content creator, a normal content creator, not a fucking batch of people who are trying to like, it's not cynical, but like it is kind of cynically trying to make a big viral YouTube channel, ignoring those people. Every other normal content creator on YouTube, their first videos fucking sucked. Every podcaster you'll listen to, they're awful. They're impossible to listen to. Go listen to the first like 20 Joe Rogan experiences. His podcasts were just like unlistenable. The first like 10 of them. They're just awful. The studio looks awful. The recording equipment is awful. There's no, like Joe doesn't know how to interview. They're just a bunch of dickheads like laughing, and because he interviewed his friends they're just sitting around joking. And it's terrible. It's terrible. You don't have to be good at content creation when you first start. You're not going to be. I wasn't. No one else is. Just get in there and kind of like get started and be shit at the start. That's okay. And on this concept of like, it's okay if you've like only fucked up something. Like if you're not an expert on something and all you've ever done is made a billion mistakes on that thing, that's why I started my website. Like I didn't start it to say like, here's how good I am at self-improvement. Here's how good I am at getting laid. I started the website to say, here's everything I fucked up. Look at everything I made a mistake on. Like my first like 50 articles were me saying like, I fucked this up. I fucked that up. I wasn't on the same team as girls. I lied to all the girls. I tried to manipulate. I was like, evil at times. Like I talk about everything I did wrong and how you can avoid the same mistakes. You don't have to be good at something in order to be a content creator. You really can wrap your entire, it won't always be the case, but you can like start your content creation by wrapping your personality, wrapping your failures around, really not phrasing that well, but you know what I mean? Like starting off on the foundation of I suck at this and here's all the mistakes I made. And through starting this, I'm hopefully going to get better. Through writing this down and documenting it, it can be like a journey. Like this is me documenting me getting better at this shit. I suck right now. I'm going to get better. That's kind of what my website was. I wasn't, a sex god when I first started my website. I didn't really know what I was doing. I'd had some success with women. I'd had some success with self-improvement, but I wasn't anywhere near where I wanted to be. And that was the process. Through the process of writing, I got better. And also, obviously, going out and having sex with women, going out and hitting the gym and stuff like that. But yeah, the other thing I'll say is if you sit there, you're not sure what to write, just start like brainstorming. Just sit down at the computer, brainstorm like, what do I know? What am I good at? Like, even to start with stupid shit that you might know. Look around your fucking apartment. There will be something that you're decent at that you can make some content around. I wrote a fucking article and I did a YouTube video on how to use a goddamn beard trimmer, right? Because that was something that I got really decent at. I learned how to like trim it, how to make it all the same length, how to like get rid of this no neck shit, how to get rid of the shit on my upper lip. Like I don't like a mustache. I like it pretty smooth. How to like make this bit here on the sides super neat. I did a fucking YouTube video and an article on like how to use a beard trimmer. I've also done one on like how to shave your head bald using that. Like I have that was a terrible sentence. I have a head shaver and I did a video and an article on how to use that. Those are just random things I have around the house that I got decent at, through experience. I've done articles on like how to use vibrators, and I'm only decent at vibrators because I've used them so many times. There will be something in your apartment that you are good at. Whether that's like, I don't even know, something stupid like, how to get the best fucking shoes, but for half the price. How to buy Nikes for half price. Like every single one of you will be good at something. You will have some level of expertise on some subject that you can turn into an article or a podcast or a YouTube video. Just start with that. You will then look around the apartment at other things like, oh, well, actually, I know how to get really good sleep. I've figured out how to get really good sleep. Or like some of you are alcoholics that have quit alcohol. Shit, okay, here's my experiences of quitting alcohol. That's like 50 fucking articles right there that you could talk about. How to quit alcohol, my struggles with alcohol, my journey through getting over it, other people that I've helped, my worst relapse ever. What else could you talk about? How I used to use alcohol to self medicate, what I use instead to self medicate right now, what I do when I have temptation, how do I go out with my friends without drinking? Do girls that I date care that I don't drink? Do my friends care that I don't drink? How do I deal with peer pressure? How do I have fun on a Friday or a Saturday night when everyone else is drinking? Do I feel like I get tempted when everyone else is drunk? Top five ways to, overcome alcoholism. 5 things that I'm really grateful for now that I'm not drinking. Like, you know what I mean? I just pulled fucking 30 article ideas out of my ass for you right there. There will be like every single topic that you could ever come up with. There will be like 100 articles that you could write. And every single one of you motherfuckers is an absolute expert on something. You know something down to the tiniest little detail on some subject, multiple subjects. I'm sure some of you guys could write articles on the sports teams that you follow. I did a fucking 3-part podcast or a 2-part podcast on fucking Counter-Strike, the video game that I really like to follow. I could have done another 50 podcasts on that. I have so much to say about that. And it's just a dumb video game that I follow. Every single one of you guys you'll be able to give me the history of, like, I don't know, the fucking New York Mets or something. Like some sports team that you're obsessed with. You'll be able to give me the rundown on like why their coach is a legend, why they've been in a slump the last few years, how they're going to get out of it, what you would do if you could be the coach, which 5 players would you kick and which ones would you bring on to replace if money was no object, what would you do if you had a budget of like, $20 million and that was it and you had to work within that. Like, you will have so much content creation that you could do just on that, but you're not giving yourself permission to do it because you think, oh, but I'm not enough of an expert. Like there's analysts and other people like that who know the sports team better than me, so I shouldn't do it. Or, I can't really do a video on like how to overcome alcoholism because I'm still working through it. I still have temptations. I still relapse sometimes. Therefore, I'm not an expert. Therefore, I can't do content on this. Or some of you with self-improvement, you'll say, yeah, but I don't really get laid that much. I only meet like one girl every 3 months or 6 months or something. And I have a great body and maybe I could do content creation on how to get a good body, but I don't really deserve to because I'm nowhere near where I want to be. I don't get laid. It's like, stop making excuses. I felt like that at the start when I started content creation. I had to throw myself in the deep end and say, sorry, fucker, you have to do this. No excuses. You have to just do this. And you're going to suck. You're not an expert. You're nowhere near where you want to be with your getting laid journey or your self-improvement journey. Doesn't matter. Just do it. And if you still feel like, after everything I've just said to you, if you still feel like, man, I really want to do some content, but I just, I know that Andy's telling me I'm an expert, but I really don't feel like one. I don't think there's anything I could do. I'll give you one. This is the dumbest idea that I could ever give you, but I wrote this down and you could make a video on this. I bet you are a fucking expert at tying your shoelaces. I'm not taking the piss. I bet you are a fucking expert at tying your shoelaces. I bet you have done it 20,000 times. I bet you know what length to tie them, how to make sure your shoelaces don't come undone, what to do if your shoelaces come undone. How do you discreetly tie your shoelaces without other people like thinking you're a weirdo because you got to stop in the middle of public and tie it? How to deal with anxiety or insecurity about your shoelaces coming undone. You could probably explain how you would take a kid and teach them how to tie their shoelaces, a little like mantra or nursery rhyme or something you'd give them if they didn't know how, like so they could remember it. You could probably do articles on why it's fucking retarded that we even have shoelaces, that they're like this archaic, stupid way of keeping your shoes tied together. They don't need to exist. Velcro would be a better option. Just having no fucking shoelaces in the first place would be a better option. They're quicker to put on. They look better. Shoelaces are kind of a carryover or a tradition. They're like a cultural habit. They're like a fashion. They're the last thing you do before you step out into the world. They're like a book note at the end of your getting ready routine. I'm sure if you then really sat down and thought about it for an hour, you could come up with like a million different designs for how you do a better shoelace, how you'd improve upon them, why you think they've stayed mostly the same for the last however many fucking years they've stayed the same. You could do some Googling. You'd find out those little plastic bits at the end of the shoelace are called aglets. You would say, I bet you most people don't know they're called aglets. I just blew your mind. Aglet, A-G-L-E-T. You could even show people that you can buy aglets on Amazon. I bet you didn't fucking know that. I went and researched that for you. You could have a look on there and see that there's different colors, there's designs. You could fucking, talk about, there's ones that have diamonds on them. There's different like There's all sorts of like designs on them on a fucking little bit of plastic that goes on the end of your shoelace. You could get into like aglet fashion, shoelace fashion. Maybe you can buy like pink shoelaces to put in your white boots. Nobody fucking does that, right? Like you could go and do that. I've just given you like 20 ideas on fucking shoelaces, for fuck's sakes. You could seriously start a blog on fucking shoelaces and you could probably build it up. You could probably go reasonably popular and make affiliate money from fucking, not that this is about money, but this could be, from fucking selling affiliate links to shoelaces and having a shoelace design company or some shit. That's fucking shoelaces, right? I just took the world's most boring thing. I did that deliberately to show you that every single one of you, if you are creative enough, there is something that you are an expert on. I only researched that. I only wrote all those things for about like 10 minutes. And I did a bit of research on like shoelaces and I found out that aglet thing myself. Like anything that you are mildly an expert on, or that you have done, you can quickly become an expert and you can quickly like take your knowledge and the things that you have, even mundane things like tying your shoelaces or a sports team that you follow, or, you know, how to clean your apartment, how to trim your fucking beard, how to make sure your clothes don't have lint on them, where to buy the best clothes, how to go and buy new outfits when you're not sure what to wear. The moderator on my forums and one of my good friends, Radical, he started a fucking website about hats, for fuck's sakes. He's literally started a website about fucking hats called thehatfish.com. Thehatfish.com. And he talks about like men's fashion for hats, what to do if you're a bald man, just wear a hat, like different types of hats, different styles of hats, what hats go with what clothes, like, you know, all that kind of shit. So if he can start a website about fucking hats, and I've just given you ideas about fucking shoelaces, and I started a goddamn creepy website about like getting laid and sticking your penis in women, there are a million things that you are going to be an expert on. Again, remember, I wasn't an expert when I started my website. I don't even think I'm an expert now, but I've just learned a lot and written a lot. And like through the process of content creation, I've gotten better at it. I've gotten more eloquent. I've gotten to a point where I can like, you know, express my opinion better than at the start. You could also do fucking videos on like, you know, God, I don't know, like how to style your hair, different haircuts, like different barbers that you've been to, the best barbers in your city, like how to bleach your hair. Maybe you're a guy that's been on Tinder for a year and you had no luck, and then you can tell the world like 50 things I learned from my Tinder experiences of having no luck, and you know what I'm going to do to fix it. And then through that process you could document like, okay, I'm losing weight, I'm dressing better, I'm hitting the gym, you know, I'm going to take better pictures, I'm going to learn through this. You could be an absolute amateur who doesn't know what he's doing, and you could start content creation and document your journey on the path to becoming an expert, which is kind of what I feel like I did. Now, I didn't start as an amateur, but I've definitely documented my progress and getting better at this whole thing. So you guys are absolutely an expert. Every single one of you motherfuckers listening to this, you will be an expert on so many things that you've never given yourself credit for. I want you to share some of that knowledge, just like I have, just like Radical did with his hat website, just like you could. Feel free to steal that idea, you guys, about the fucking shoelaces, by the way. I want some motherfucker to start an article or start a, you know, some sort of content. It doesn't have to be your whole website, but just write an article on shoelaces, on aglets, on aglet fashion, shoelace fashion, and be bold. Go wear some black shoelaces with some white shoes or something. Do something fucking crazy that I never see anyone else doing. You could be the fucking pioneer for that. You could build an entire fashion brand around different colored shoelaces. So go do some sort of content creation, especially if you're someone who's been sitting there saying, I wish I could do a YouTube video. I wish I could do an article. I wish I could do a podcast. Man, that would be so much fun. Go and do it. No one is holding you back. Nothing is holding you back except you. And the fact that you've put yourself in this box of, I'm not an expert. That's bullshit. Everyone is an expert on something, on a million things. You have knowledge. If you don't, then you would have failed at something a million times, and that makes you an expert on what not to do. That's the same as being an expert. Go do that. I will also say, if any of you want to write a guest post for my website, which Radical has written a couple of guest posts for my website, feel free. Like, write an article, send it to me. I will happily publish it on my website, even if it's utter crap. Okay, if it's complete dog shit, I won't. But even if it's like 50% dog shit, because my first 20 articles were dog shit, I'll happily post your article if it's dog shit. I will wrap it around some nice paragraphs from me saying like, you know, go easy on this guy. He's just like, this is his first article. Good on him. I really respect him for, you know, putting in the effort and getting started. Remember that your first bit of content is going to suck, so be a little patient. My girlfriend Imogen has written like 5 fucking articles for my website. The first couple of them kind of sucked, and then she got pretty decent. Anyone can write for me. I will happily post your stuff. Again, I'll wrap it in paragraphs of like, be nice to this guy. He's done a good job. And then at the end, I'll write a little bit saying like, great extra job. Like, here's a couple of tips for next time. I will happily publish that on my website. That goes out to anyone. You can write about anything. I don't care what you write about. It doesn't have to be girls. It doesn't have to be self-improvement. Write about your fucking favorite sports team. Radical did an article about hats, for God's sakes, hat fashion. Imogen has done a couple of articles about like what it's like to be a woman, Publish anything you want, send it to me. I'll happily put it on my website. If not, start your own website, start your own YouTube channel, start your own podcast, do your own content. Don't hold back. Don't wait until you're an expert. Every single one of you guys is an expert on something. And it's time that you start putting your voice out there, because the world needs to hear what you have to say, right? There are not enough voices out there giving the kind of like good content that I know you guys are capable of. If you're part of this community, if you're part of this self-improvement community, you are leagues above the average person. You have more to say, more interesting things to say. Please start putting that out there. I really want you guys to get into content creation. As I'm always saying, if I can do it, you sure as fuck can too.